Hello, editor. Good afternoon, sir. It's still morning
Hello,
here.
good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. With pleasure, I welcome everyone to this media discourse. My name is Balogun Iretomiwa, and I am pleased to announce that I'm going to be the host for today's discourse. We have today with us a seasoned journalist, someone who has amassed wealth of experience, and she's going to be giving us insights into a journalist journey, advocacy, career development in the US. And for the book lovers amidst us, she's going to be talking about a book, Imprisoned, the Travails of a Trafficked Victim. I welcome everybody once again. I want to thank Media Career Development Network, the organization where I'm currently having my internship for this wonderful opportunity, my boss and my colleague. With us today, we have Bukola Oriola, an award-winning investigative journalist. We also have a colleague with us, Osmara Gomez, Mr. Lekon Otufodurin, the Managing Director of Media Career Development Network. I welcome you all and various participants. Thank you for joining us today. Without taking much of our time, we would like to discuss your investigative journalism, your life as an investigative journalism, Bukola, because journalism has to do with various segments. Why not public relations? Why not advertising? Why not broadcast? But why investigative journalism?
Thank you so much, Ms. Balogun, for this opportunity to chat with you and your colleagues here. And I would like to thank my editor. He was first my boss before you. So I would like to thank my editor, Mr. Lekon Otufodurin. He was one of those who helped me to hone my skills when I was just a young and budding journalist in Nigeria. And I worked with him at 2 different media houses before I came to the US. I will say, to answer your question, because as you asked that question about why not public relations or advertising, why broadcast, why investigative journalism? Well, I will say that first of all, it's a divine journey. It wasn't how I planned it. The Bible says that man proposes, but God disposes. The reason I say that is because when I was studying mass communication at the Polytechnic Ibadan, I was introduced to the 3 different arms, and I also did projects on the different arms. However, when it was time to actually get into one of them, I found myself in the print medium. And I will say that I have not regretted being in the print medium. In my own little experience, the print seemed to be the hardest of them all when you are just starting, and it will be better to start from the print and then you can move to the other arms. The reason is because if you start from the print, it makes it easy to go to the other arms. But if you start from the other arms, it's a little bit harder to come to the print, because the print seems to be like where the heavy lifting work is done. You have to do a lot of writing, with broadcast, radio or TV, you just say a little script and then the news is aired. But with print, we are talking about not just 5-paragraph news story. We're talking about a full page feature, 2 pages feature, sometimes several publications of a particular feature. And I had one of those stories that won me the Cadbury Award, where I had to go do an investigative journalism during the WAEC exam. I think it was GCE And I also did the UME, and I also did the PCE exam, which was paid for by my media organization then. And I had to kind of dress up like one of the youths to go into the exam hall, and did everything, including paying invigilators to give me the expo. And during that journey, I found out that even sometimes the reason why people still get expo but still fail is because the person you are relying on to give you expo is giving you the wrong answers. Because during that time, I found out that, like, one of the expo I got, some of the for the multiple question answers, there were options that were not in the exam. For example, let's say you have to choose from A to B, or no, A to C or D, and then you find out that the answers you are giving, some of them have A. So that lets you know that that is why sometimes, even when people think they have the expo, they still fail the exam, because the person giving you the expo is just giving you nonsense sometimes. And going into print and keeping on in print and doing investigative journalism has been very rewarding for me. I will say that it helped me beyond just working in the newsroom. It also helped me outside of the newsroom. Now, you mentioned one of my books. By the grace of God, I've published, I think, at least 10 books already. And my background in print journalism helped me to continue to write and use my writing skills in other areas, because even though I have two memoirs on trafficking, I have other published books that have nothing to do with trafficking. Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Ma, for that brief introduction. So, in the course of your work, what has been the challenge when you just started as a journalist? What were the challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
Okay, as a journalist, like I said, I was in the print, and maybe I should tell you how I really started. So, how I started was going way, 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 way back. Was I I'm a member of Winners Chapel. I think Winners Chapel is popular for people to know. Living Faith Church is Winners Chapel. And where I
Yes, Ma.
was there serving in the, I think it was the transport unit, I met another person from the church who was also serving in the transport unit. And this guy came with um, like a draft of magazine that he was trying to publish. And I became interested because I was like, oh, I'm a journalism student and I'm interested in this. So I started working with him on it gradually, but then that didn't work out. And one day, somebody just showed up, and I was talking about my interest in the print, and I was already picking a niche for myself. I said, I want to be covering local governments, because local government seem like it's closer to the people than the federal government or any other sector. And the guy said, for you to start, you need to first of all connect with other journalists in the local government area. So I asked, how do I do that? He said, okay, first of all, go to Punch newspaper and ask for the local government reporter, and then that reporter will show you how to go about it. So I said, okay. And I went to Punch newspaper. When I got there, I asked for the local government reporter. They told me they don't have a local government reporter, but they have a political reporter, and that reporter also covers local government. So luckily, he was around, and they called him out to me. He came to me and talked, and after telling him what I was planning to do, he told me, there is an association of local government reporters, and that he is not part of that association, but he could connect me with their chairman, who was working at Concord newspaper. I don't know if any of you now know Concord newspaper, or remember there was a news media called Concord newspapers by
Yes,
Airport
Concord
Road.
newspaper.
Yes, by MKO Abiola. So I
Yeah.
went, and I still remember the guy's name. His name was Remy Adefulu. So when I went to Concord newspapers, I told him what I wanted, and he said, "Okay, no problem." And what he did was he told me to meet him at Coca-Cola at Oshodi. So I went to Coca-Cola at Oshodi I think the next day or so. I met him there, and when I got there to Coca-Cola, I was very surprised the way I was treated from, the gate to get in. And then I sat with all these people, and they were asking questions. I was new, I didn't know what to ask or anything. I just listened in. And when they finished, we left the place, and then he told me, meet me at another place. So I kept going to these different places with him, and sometimes we just tell me, go to this local government. So I found myself going from one local government to another, talking to local government public relations officers. So I think the three I remember very well were Mushi local government. I also interacted with Amuwodofi local government and Ojo local government. And whenever I went, he would just tell me that when you get there, tell them you are from Remy. And when I get there, I will tell them, they will give me um at the time I didn't know it's this press release. So they will give that to me, and I bring it back. And then it won't write in front of me. It will just tell me, okay, thank you. And it will take me to the canteen, feed me, and then I will will see me off to the bus stop, and then I will leave. And then one day he sent me to Unilag to come to also do the same thing. Unfortunately, that day at the Unilab, because there was a local government chairman coming there, the Surulere local government chairman. But when we got to the Unilag event, it flopped because the people that were supposed to be present at that event were not there. I think their main guest was not available, so the whole event just fizzled. But I interacted with the Surulere local government chairman, who came, and somehow myself and one other young male journalist, we followed him. We even followed him to his house. He gave us drink, and then I left. But while I was there at the Unilag, I heard about a new newspaper that just came out called National Interest newspaper. And I went to the National Interest newspaper. So when I got to National Interest newspaper, the person they told me to connect to there was Mr. Are. And he told me, he too was giving me like kind of similar thing like Remy would tell me, go to this place. And I remember the first place he sent me to was the police department at GRA. And when I went to that police event, it happened also to be during, I think, Christmas season. I went to that police event, and they were parading armed robbers. And then the story and everything. So when I got back to the office, I did that. I wrote the story. When I wrote it, he told me, what you wrote, you have all the information, but you didn't write it well. I will give it to somebody that will write it for you. So they wrote it, and then for the first time I saw my name, my byline. I was very happy to see my byline in the newspaper for the first time. And that was how, unfortunately, I had to ditch my Concord person, because there I didn't see my name in any newspaper, and I kept saying I want to see my story. But I saw this opportunity here, so I stayed with National Interest newspaper. But then I realized that because I didn't apply like every other person who got to new National Interest at the time, I was not hired. I was not even made an intern, and I was just there floating around. But because it's also a new newspaper, they didn't have education desk, and I like education. So I decided to start writing stories about education and saying I want us to have an education desk. And finally, at some point, they created an education desk, and they put other people there. But luckily, one of them was willing to have me continue to work with them. So I began to work with them. So I was working for free, showing up every day with no pay, no even, I wasn't assigned any role like official role, meaning either you're an intern or a staff in the place, and I just continue on. But despite that, those are the times that I was able to learn the ins and outs of the newsroom. That was when I learned that, you know, the newsroom is a ghost land during the day. It's in the evening people show up to the newsroom, because during the day people are out, you know, doing their beat or writing the stories or investigating stories. And then in the evenings, they come to the office to write that story. And gradually, you know, I began to meet other journalists in the education bit. And one thing I did to help me with my writing and also overcome the challenge of just floating around was that my other colleagues in the other newspapers, I tried to make friends with them and ask for help. So it's very important to ask for help. Also, in the newsroom, Mr. Otufodurin was one of the senior editors working with me in that newsroom at the time. And he was one of those I will also reach out to help me read my story and critique it or help me rewrite. And gradually, when they help me to write like the first paragraph, I'm able to take it on and write the rest. And that was how, you know, as I continue to build on the skill, I overcame the challenge of writing a news story the proper way, where you have your five W's and H, and also learning what are those really the meat of the story that you need to put in this in your article to make it newsworthy, so that somebody will want to read that story or people are looking forward to your story. And that was how gradually I think my byline began to get attention, and naturally I would just get invitations with my name on it to, you know, different events that I have no clue about. And that was how I continue to build on that skill in the newsroom. Thank you.
That was very wonderful. So, in the course of when, in the process of when you were not even hired properly and you were working for free, you were able to use the opportunity to learn and do something great. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that insight. So, you've written a whole lot of stories, you have a lot of bylines. What is that memorable, or should I say, the challenging story that you worked on?
I will say that every story is a challenge. The reason is because, you know, you could write a story that will land either you or your newspaper into trouble. You know, I've written a story where it was Asu's story, and I wasn't, in fact, I didn't know that the story was going to be used, because I brought it in, I think, on a Thursday night, and I was expecting it to see it on a Friday, and it was not in the newspaper, so I just gave up on it. But on Monday morning, I was surprised that story was on the front page of the newspaper. And on that same Monday morning, ASU had meetings scheduled with the Minister of Education. And at that meeting, the ASU chairman, who at the time doesn't know who Bukola Oriola was, but I just showed up with other journalists at the Unilag to attend their press conference and wrote my story and submitted it. And he said that my newspaper at this time, then it was New Age newspaper, because I was no longer with National Interest. It said that that paper was what the commission, the Minister of Education brought into the meeting and put it on the table and said, "See what you guys did to me." And he said, "I don't even know who is Bukola. Who is Bukola? I don't know who is Bukola Oriola." He didn't believe him, because he was like, "How would you not know Bukola Oriola when she came to your event and did this story?" Excuse me. And I think he started trying to find out from people who I was. And later on, when they came to Lagos, I was able to meet with him, and that was how he knew me in person, who I was. And another thing is, you know, I will say that because I loved education. One of the things I did then was career guide. I had a column called career guide. I really loved career guide. The reason is because in doing career guide, I used the JAMB, UME, and PCE brochures to help to do it, where I pick a course of study and then do my research online to find out what kind of job you can do after studying this course. Because I realized that sometimes students don't want to do a particular course of study because they don't know what they can do when they finish their university education or polytechnic education, thinking, oh, I can't get a job if I go and study this. So I decided to use that as a way to educate, to know, okay, if you go to school to study this, these are the possible career paths that you can go into. So if those kinds of career paths are areas that interest you, then you won't worry. You will go do that course instead of everybody trying to do the same course, and then they keep increasing the cutoff point for those courses. Then another story that I think I really like, and it has stayed with me since, it was when I was given an assignment to cover best student in SSCE. I can't remember the year now. And I had to go to WAEC to find out who were the best students in SSCE and from which school. So after doing that research to find out, okay, these are the students, then I think I was asked to pick three of them, top three. So I went and I found out that one of them I met her at her house, and then one of them I met her in Lagos, like Lagos, Balogun. That was where that student was. And it was interesting that sometimes the places that we see as slums, or the places that we see as, the people there, they hoodlums, they don't do well, there are gems in those places. That was what that story taught me. And then also there was another school that I had to go to in, it's not Badagry, but it's kind of going towards that area, like kind of is it not Aja, but after Lasso, that area. And I realized that that school that I was going to, you have to take a canoe to get to the school, and it's within Lagos. And I didn't know how to swim, neither did I have a life jacket, but I hopped on the canoe with one little boy, whether he was 10 years old, that took me across that river to get to that school, to be able to find who was that best graduating student. And they were able to kind of send me back into the city to be able to locate that student. So, and that has stayed with me because I learned a lot from that process of trying to find these students who had left school and they have gone on with their life. And one of them, I think, was still waiting for not JAMB result to go to school. And I think two of them already got their JAMB, and they were going to be going on to university. So it was interesting to learn that in my course of work, and that has really stayed with me because even though journalism says that if it is not bad, it's no news, and if we are doing good news, it's kind of like PR. For me, I still take good news as news too, because sometimes we neglect the good news that we can use to inspire somebody else to kind of make a change or positive change in their life. Thank you.
So moving on very fast to the book Imprisoned, Travails of a Trafficked Victim. I've read the book 3 times. I'm a very huge fan of the book, and I could feel your pain knowing that the book is your story. What's the hardest part of sharing your personal experience of trafficking in your book?
I will say, first of all, yes, it was hard sharing that story. And when the story came out, I think when editor published the story, I think it was a Sunday news story. And it was also on Facebook. Oh, I was bashed. But that what kept me on was the fact that I didn't just publish the story for public sympathy. I published the story because I was very angry in my spirit. I was angry that I had a whole career ahead of me. and I was at the peak of my career. And then this kind of thing happened to me. So, and also in the process of getting help, because it's so hard. One of the things I learned from it is, you know, it's difficult when you are telling the truth and nobody is believing you. It makes you go cuckoo crazy. And that was what I was going through during the time that I was having my experience and trying to get help. So I decided to go into a covenant with God to say, God, indeed, if I get help, I'm going to put my face to my story. It's going to be hard, and I'm going to use my real face and my name, because I know that my name is kind of known, and people that knew me before then will know that it's still the same me. And that way, those who are really in need of help in similar situation will believe they can get help, and they will reach out for help. So that was my kind of will I say saving grace, or something I turned back to, because yeah, it's hard. It's still hard talking about my story, but I go back to my source, which is God, and I'm grateful to Him that He always gave me strength and help to continue to push on, as I'm using it to help other people in similar situations.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Ma. So, in the book, you mentioned that the support group meetings was very instrumental for you in your healing process. I would like to ask you that, apart from the support group, writing your story, did it help you any to heal? And what message do you hope that readers can take away from it, rather than feel and feeling the pain you share in the book?
Thanks. Yes, the support group was helpful, and now I use that support group as kind of the base for our own organization, the Editor Story, to create support group, which we kind of designed differently than the support group I went to, because also the more I do the work and interact with others, I realize the importance of helping someone who has experienced trauma to try to use gratitude to stay afloat. And other things that help me, writing my book, because when you asked that question, the first thing that I remembered was that it took me a year to write that book. And it took me a year because when I started writing, I think I wrote the first 3 chapters for like, is it 4 months or 5 months? Because it was very difficult. I will be typing the story and I won't see the screen and realize that I was crying. So I will stop and leave it and go, walk away from it. I just save and then come back again to it and come back again to it. And at a point, there was somebody who now helped me to write, meaning that she kind of gave me the support of, I will write and then she will help me read it and then ask me questions and tell me some parts feel like they were missing, or what was I trying to say here, and all of that. And that kind of helped me till I was able to finish the book. And yes, writing the book, because writing is also a form of therapy. It did give me, by the time I finally finished that book, it gave me some strength and energy. And, I think another thing that was very helpful to me then was that while I was writing the book, before it became public, I had like what you call proof copies.